call. This is Dave Savage, CEO of Mortgage. Super pumped to have Mr. Todd Duncan as today's guest. How are you doing today, Todd?
I'm doing great, Dave. Good to be with you guys again, and looking forward to this call for sure.
No doubt. Well, open houses were a thing, but I think this year, or not this year, but this quarter, we're going to be focusing heavily on conversion, heavily on trust, and we're preparing everybody for spring home buying season. So with that said, Todd, I know you have some thoughts to share. I know you've got a big topic. If you could set up the call, and then I will happily talk to you.
Cool, man. So give me controls, and we'll get going. Awesome. Good to be with all the mortgage coach tribe, and I'm always grateful to be able to hang with you guys and spend some time talking about what I'm passionate about and what I've spent my life studying. Dave and I were talking last week when we did a quick Zoom interview about kind of what I'm feeling right now in the world at large, but also feeling specifically about mortgage originators and kind of the transition and yet maybe the transformation that we're all in. So I told Dave, give me about 10 minutes to kind of set up what we want to dialogue about today, and then we'll get into some kind of Q&A going back and forth. So the title of today's webinar is the High Trust Mandate, and it is what it is, and it means mandate, and mandate is that there's no circumventing, there's no short-circuiting, there's no way to expedite trust. Trust is an amazing major ingredient in everything that we do in life, but specifically in the mortgage space. And one thing I'll say to you at the very get-go is that when you start to understand the deep relationship between trust, and then you start to marry it up with technology and you start to marry it up with strategy, amazing things can happen to your business. We're getting ready to do a High Trust Sales Academy in May here in Newport Beach, California. And I thought I'd just throw up kind of what's possible when you focus on trust. This is a guy named Dominic D'Angora, and he quoted last year telling us that he had gone from 16 fundings to over 225 fundings a year in under 48 months. And the one thing that Dominic told us, and the one thing I want to tell you, is this idea of trust. It's the hardest to gain, it's the easiest to lose, and it's the most important to hold on to. So as a mortgage coach user and as a mortgage professional and obviously somebody who wants to optimize your sales results, your client results, your conversion results, I mean, everything rises and falls on this idea of trust. And it is the hardest to gain. It takes a day in and day out focus to really measure, is everything I'm doing aligned with a variant of trust? And obviously the best trust is high trust. And so it's hard to get, right? And if it were easy to get, there'd be no distrust. It's like there'd be no dark if there were not also light. There'd be no loss if there were not also a win. And I'm going to just turn this off for just a second here. There we go. And so then in a moment, trust is easy to lose. And we see this happening with individual LOs. We see it happening with mortgage companies and financial institutions. And so the idea that trust is something to be reckoned with, that it is something that is vital. It's got to become the DNA to how you operate. And if you don't think that way and you don't begin to look at the filter of how people are processing trust in their relationship with you, and really even the speed of trust and how you use your ecosystems of agents and builders and previous borrowers to help you not only build but sustain trust, you're missing the biggest thing that we're in business to do, and that's to impact the life of a human being that wants to finance real estate and make their dreams come true. So I'm in the middle of kind of a sabbatical, and I've been really focusing on studying trust. I've got 3 or 4, fairly large kind of data inputs that are coming in from 2 worldwide and 2 U.S. consulting firms. And I thought I'd kind of share with you just a little bit to set the seed for what trust is and what you need to be focused on. And then we'll start talking about what do top producers do in the mortgage space to really marry up trust and technology. So this is something that is one of the outcroppings of our research. And I don't want to go through the whole thing, but I do want to point out that in 2010, trust became an adjective, it became a result, it became a line item in business. And we started measuring business performance and obviously the individuals within those businesses. We started measuring them on the level of trust that they were able to create in internal and external conversations, okay? And you can look at a few of these others, but I wanted to point to then in 2015, what we started to learn is that innovation without trust does not work. And so trust becomes an essential ingredient to innovation. And I think one of the coolest things about obviously, what you guys are doing with Mortgage Coach and certainly what you're doing from an advisor standpoint and the way that your TCAs work and all of that, I think that's a marker for what happened, going on 3 years ago chronologically, and even further back. I think, to the early days, Dave, of Mortgage Coach, it was essential to advise people the right way. And so trust, 2015 becomes essential to whatever we do with tech. And then there became in 2016 a growing inequality of trust. And trust began to kind of dissipate, and depending on how you married business operations and business methodologies and business leadership with technology and trust, we started to see a separation of trust, and we started to see a downturn in the world markets on trust, and certainly in the U.S. with lots of variables. We had an election, we had a lot of essential things that people were looking at in terms of business propriety and were they doing the right thing and were they not doing the right thing and whatnot. In any event, we end up then in 2017 in a worldwide trust crisis, and pretty incredible when you stop and think about a worldwide trust crisis. Now, that does not mean that the world is going down the tube and there's no recovery. But what it does set up is that in 2018, the most important thing that we focus on is this battle of truth. And so as mortgage professionals, the one thing that we have to pin our future on is what kind of truth do we have with our dialogues and the depth in which we go into those dialogues, and how do we begin to look at what is a worldwide issue in our city or in our town or in our company. If you're a CEO and you're a leader watching this, what do we do to make sure that every single day the interactions that we have create these moments of truth that then yield to technology, ultimately producing the highest trust possible? So here's just a couple glimpses. This is a very scary graph to look at. You'll notice in the upper right-hand corner, trust is blue, neutral is gray, and distrust is green. The 2017 Trust Barometer that we produced had the U.S. at number 68. They were in the blue, and they were therefore then, based on the key on the top right, they were in an area of high trust. You'll notice on the right, the 2018 poll has them down in the green, which is distrust, and any country at 49 or below is in a area of distrust. And you can see in the lower right-hand corner that the U.S. Trust Index crashes 23 points. So between 2017's stats, which were based on 2016's public information, and 2018 stats, which were based on 2017, you can see the U.S. had a major slide. And so therefore then, everything in the U.S. has a little bit more suspicion around it in the area of trust. Here's another one. This is the entire world at large. And again, upper right-hand corner, blue is trust, gray is neutral, green is distrust. The U.S. decline in the last 12 months is the steepest decline in the history of trust since it began getting measured about 17 years ago. So the U.S. is number 52 in 2016 in the 17 report. And in the 18 report for 2017, they're number 43, steepest decline ever measured. Here's what it looks like on a worldwide basis. The 6 markets with extreme trust gains, the 16 markets with typical changes in trust, and the 6 markets on the right with extreme trust losses. And what you can begin to see on the right is that the US had a negative 37% swing down. You look at all of these countries, and whether you like their policies or not, whether you like what they stand for or not, whether you don't know, because I look at some of these countries and I don't know, what makes them tick or what makes them fail. But what I can tell you is that when a country like ours is over on the far right, the highest declining country in terms of trust, that is a concern. And it's a concern for anybody that operates a business, and it's a concern for anybody like you or like me that relies on client interaction and the transfer of trust to be the highest possible. So I throw these up here because I think that there's some trends that we need to talk about. And before we jump into this, I want to just maybe do a little ping pong with Dave so far on what's your sense, Dave, on kind of the world at large as it relates to what's happening in the financial sector in the US, and more specifically, what's happening in the mortgage sector within the business financial sector in the US, the steepest declining country in trust in the world.
Well, the thing that comes to my mind when I'm listening to this is that, our biggest partner in the mortgage space is the real estate agent in the real estate space. And what Todd's talking about, he could be talking to a group of lenders, he could be talking to a group of realtors, he could be talking to a group of CPAs, financial services, pretty much everybody that surrounds the family, call it the wealth team. I think this is super on point. So if you're a loan officer listening to this, Todd's been talking about high trust for forever, but high trust was a good idea. It was a competitive advantage last year, the year before. It really is essential to your survival going forward. And I think as you listen to this, you kind of need to be listening to it for yourself. And then you also need to be listening to it so that you can learn this conversation so well that you can bring it to real estate agents. So, Todd, we've already had a number of people ask for your slides. Hopefully you can provide us a copy. If anybody is watching the video of this, you're watching it on YouTube, down below, there will be a link. Because Todd has already told me we'll get these slides, we'll put them in a PDF. So that was one question that came up. But I just think you need to be listening to Todd, not only to improve yourself, but to be a better leader to the partners that you serve, because this was very on point for that entire community, Todd.
Thanks, Dave. There's one of the research papers that I'm looking at. It's called the conversation or the conversion code. And one of the things that's interesting about conversion is that conversion is a function of trust. I mean, if you really want to write down something that you can model your mortgage practice on, and you can literally and figuratively, quote, take to the bank, it is the simple idea that if I can focus on accelerating trust, and I'll give you the top 3 ways that top producers do it as we kind of roll through the webinar. But if you can begin to focus on the idea that you're not in the mortgage business to do something, to use a system, if you haven't in the deepest sense of your soul started to realize that the total cost analysis is not some fancy bell and whistle comparison of loan products and future casting and things like that. It's a tool, but it's not going to be perceived the way it needs to be perceived unless you understand at the deepest part of your soul that this is not something you're doing to somebody. It's not some sexy bell and whistle. It is the keyhole through which you can help people have the highest trust possible in the biggest debt of their life, because you're doing something uniquely different than anybody else that's out there that stays on the surface. And one of the things that we're watching, and one of the things that is being kind of showcased in our new writings, is this idea between the conflicting emergence, and I say this very carefully, the conflicting emergence of trust and technology having a battle for the emotions of people. And if you really stop and think about it, it's going to be a very interesting battle. And the reason why it's going to be interesting is because you can't have one without the other in today's society. And when we're looking at okay, so trust is emotion, right? Trust is connection. Trust is performance. Trust is validation. Trust is social cause. Trust is high referral. Trust is repeat. I mean, when you stop and think about what trust really is, and then you start to look at how technology it has been, will be, and continue to be unleashed in ways that, if not dealt with appropriately, can interrupt the actual building of trust. You now see the motherlode opportunity that I want to present to you on today's webinar. I think the other thing I want to tell you is this hasn't been shared with the industry. You're the only group that this has been shared with, and I told Dave before the call, it's pretty raw. It's the freshest material that we have in our research on what we're teaching and writing about trust. And I found this piece to be completely fascinating. So there is a battle for truth. And at the end of the day, every potential person in America that needs mortgage financing is trying to battle for truth. And the truth is between what technology represents, what trust demands, and how those two things reconcile. So if I have high technology with low trust, I have low conversion. If I have high trust with low technology, I have low conversion. I need high trust. I need high technology in terms of performance, acuity, reliability, visualization, impact. I need both of these in this battle for truth. And you can see throughout America right now that mortgage companies that are erring one way or the other without wrangling both of these things together are not making the headway they want to make. So here's some thoughts that I think will be fairly revealing to you. Trust in technology is showing precipitous decline. So across the world, trust in technology in 2017 declined among the group called the informed public. The US had a 19% decline in trust in tech. Hong Kong, Germany, France, overall showing a drop. 16 of the 28 markets surveyed are showing that there is a decline between trust in the marketplace and technology. Does that make technology bad? Nope. Does it mean that trust is the mandate? Yep. And if you can't marry technology and trust, you will not optimize conversion. So while this is worldwide, and while the US is in the top quartile of where technology is being doubted, which is essentially what this says, it has to come down to you and what you do when you get on the streets every day to make sure that you, as the LO, you are responsible 100% for not letting technology only be what you showcase and not letting trust only be what you pursue. You have to be able to demonstrate not only a proficiency, but more importantly, a heartfelt commitment to how you balance these two together. Here's the second part. Among the general population, there is less confidence in the next wave of innovation. Emerging technology and products that form the foundation of future businesses are far less trusted, whether it be blockchain at just under 50%, self-driving vehicles right at 50%, or artificial intelligence at just 56%. These technology subsectors command less confidence than the technology of today. So many of the technologies are not well understood, they're ill-defined, suggesting an opportunity to clarify both their value. So there's a key point right there. If your technology does not define your value, it will not be accepted. Okay, and exactly what are these technologies before adoption and use. So what we're seeing is that as innovation continues throughout the technology sector, and it will. I mean, the world is defined by technological breakthroughs, right? But you start to look at some of these things that create major trust damage, like an Uber self-driving car that kills a pedestrian driven by somebody who is a convict and has a record and misses the mark. That sets back the acceptance of that technology. We can see this as starting to create kind of breakdowns in trust. And we've got to be able to understand that in the mortgage space, we've got to, whatever technology we're using, however we're using it, it has to be defined with a trust factor in it as a moment where people can trust both at the same time. And we can't emerge too fast. We can't over technologize a human experience, and we have to be able to balance this out. And the number three is tech, it's shown, is not actively building trust. So whether it's heightening concern over how consumer data is handled, which is a negative 18 points, or increased doubt as to whether tech companies are adequately transparent in how they operate, which is down 15 points, technology is trending downward in key behaviors around trust. So there's a major, and we got to pay attention to this. We've got to really begin to understand that there's real power in blending technology as a use idea with trust, which is a mandate, and that if those two do not come together simultaneously in an interaction, then we will have lower conversion, which means we will run less efficient businesses, which means the value proposition to our agents and builders and other referral partners is compromised. And at the end of the day, no matter how sexy we try to make whatever we're trying to do with home lending, at the end of the day, it is going to be about the relationship first, supported by the technology second. And what we can start to see is we can look at companies in our space that are technology centric and they're not trust centric. And while their technology is sexy, their conversion and their retention and the humanoid effect is very, very much in question. So, Dave, these are three things. You guys are, the leading, I think, technology company in client interaction with regard to the tools that you've created. We know that trust is on the decline in the entire, U.S. sector in looking at the businesses. And, it still gets down to, doesn't it, an individual LO that decides that I am going to put these two things together and I am going to measure the impact I have by balancing trust and technology to have the highest consumer impact possible and therefore then the highest conversion possible. So before we get into ideas that you can actually use to take to the streets to make this a very clear reality, what are some of your thoughts, Dave, as a technologist, as a leader in the technology space, about some of these trends? Does it concern you? Does it embolden you? Do you have comment as the leader of Mortgage Coach and obviously the impact that you're making in tens of thousands of consumers' lives, maybe potentially monthly based on your user group? What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'm super pumped about it. Obviously, I've been a guy who's leveraged technology to build trust for most of my career. And so I think it's incredibly exciting. I think it's for loan officers, like I interviewed a loan officer yesterday who loves technology, power user. I mean, he is flipping out. He's so excited. I talk to loan officers that don't use technology and they're like, this is tough. And I put it this way. I think everybody, whether you use technology a lot or you don't, it's all about the experience that you create. And if you create the best experience, you can earn trust rapidly and systematically with everybody. But if you don't leverage technology in today's world where families are living on their mobile phones, it's true, some families aren't. And it's important, to me, a modern mortgage experience is to meet people where they're at, to communicate with people in the channels that they want. And if that family is paper, then we're printing out paper and you're ready. Everything you do is paper. If that family is mobile first, which, the growing population is, you're delivering that mobile experience. In fact, one of the loan officers that I interviewed yesterday who had a big year last year, it was his first full year in the business. He was a fireman, part-time loan officer for years before that. Last year, first year, did 40 million. This quarter, he's doubling his quarter of last year. And one of the things that he's doing that I think is so smart is when he's meeting with realtors, he's having this multi-channel conversation with them. He's got a phone, he's got paper, he's got an iPad, and then he's meeting them with where they're at. To me, that's incredibly smart. By the way, Todd, in terms of consumer interactions, it's in the millions now. The total cost analysis will be used for over 1 million families to make a mortgage decision. So, over 10,000 loan officers are using it. Millions of families are getting that. So I think it's exciting. Everybody on this call, whether you're using technology well or using it a little, I hope you think of Mortgage Coach as just like this platform so that you can be an advisor and a coach to families. And we are a platform to help you do that. And then Todd, our partner, he is a platform to teach you, train you, upgrade your skills so that when you show up in those meetings, you're showing up in the right way. And also just teaching you the tactics and strategies. So Todd, why don't we, if you don't mind, I think you've set up, trust is the mandate going forward. And every loan officer that's a referral-based local loan officer, really take note. I think that word mandate is strong, but I think it is a requirement. If you want to be a loan officer that's like going uphill with the wind in your face, you don't need technology. If you want to be the loan officer going downhill with the wind at your back and you want to win the race, then I think what I was going to talk about over the next 30 minutes is super important. So I don't know if you don't mind sharing some specific tactics, strategies that, kind of marry up technology and trust. Is that a good segue, Todd?
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I think that the one thing I want to say before we jump into kind of these 3 deal points, if you will, is I want you to begin to think that the idea of having technology and the idea of having the opportunity to utilize that technology in a very, very deep, committed, like pure intention, motives are clear, you have a deep, almost unquenchable desire to have the consumer win. If that can be kind of where you start to think right now, and maybe demystify kind of the relationship that you have these 2 things that sit on the sidelines. You have trust that sits over here, and you have technology that sits over here. And you start to think about the guided imagery that theoretically technology and trust should be creating for your clients. Then I think you'll start to embrace some of these ideas that we're actually talking about. And I think we have some polling questions we'll throw up too as we go through this. And for the next, 20, 25 minutes or so, I think it's important to maybe unpack kind of the direction that we see high performance going in the area of trust. So this is from Mark Benioff. Mark's the CEO of Salesforce. This was quoted off of Jim Cramer's Mad Money. He said, "If trust is not my highest value, especially with all this amazing new technology and all the changes it is bringing my customers or consumers, then how am I leading? If everything's important to you, then nothing is important." And I put this up here because obviously one of the greatest technologists of the modern day, having an idea 15 years ago to start, Salesforce, and to see it today as the global behemoth that it is, and to have this resonate 3 months ago on a Jim Cramer interview, to me speaks volumes into what we're talking about on our time together here today. If trust is not my highest value, so I would I would take those words and I would make a personal mandate that my mandate every day is to make trust my highest value. And if I can do that, then technology is the platform in which trust is enveloped. So technology then supports the trust initiative. If we don't deal with trust as our highest value, and we don't put it ahead of technology, then you'll still win using only technology, and there still be levels of transferred trust using technology. But if the trust piece is not your highest value, and therefore then your deepest achievement in every conversation you have, then you will not have the level of conversion that you otherwise could have. So when you ask the question, how am I leading? The answer is lead with trust, lead with trust, lead with trust, lead with trust. And if you do that, then the outcome is you'll see your conversion, and you'll see your retention, and you'll see your referrals, and you'll see all that go sky high. So here's some thoughts. Okay, so 3 top things top producers do to create trust with tech. So this will be interesting. This does not have technology flavor to it for a lot of LOs, and yet for other LOs, it totally has a technology flavor to it. But one thing we know is that top producers have mastered the face-to-face consultation. And that's not a new idea. But what it is Dave has used the word disruptive. He's used the word boutique. He's used the word local. Okay. So what I want to do is bathe this idea into an overarching technology trust battle, right? So face-to-face is face-to-face because face-to-face accelerates trust and demystifies tech. Okay, so it is the mandate then for the high performance LO to, in every first conversation with a first, I've never done a loan for this couple before, that experience has to be bathed in this idea of why face-to-face. And we have all these tools today. We have this tool. We have WebEx. We have Zoom. We have Adobe Connect. We have all these ways to communicate video, right? And yet stuff goes wrong. And Dave got frozen at the front end of this meeting and had to unfreeze. And we have all these things that can interrupt. And the reason why the consultation is owned by top producers in the merging of trust and tech is because it accelerates trust and eliminates tech as an interrupter to trust. Now, you can hear me talk about that. I can tell you that yesterday I had 4 of our elite members that gathered in Orange County, and they watched one of our elite members do a complete consultation with a borrower, and it was an amazing experience. The interaction was unbelievable. I talked to 2 of these people last night. They simultaneously then yesterday demonstrated what a consultation looks like for a group of realtors. To Dave's point earlier, one of the ways to master high conversion is to have your referral partners know what you do, and how you are unique and different with the borrowers that you interact with. And at the end of the day, it's a measured idea, but the other thing is it's supported by research. So you can check this article out, but this is Entrepreneur Magazine. This was a heading about 4 weeks ago that came across my radar. Want to close 10 times more deals, have more in-person meetings. And you can't really, it'd be easy to overlook the gray text below. It says you can't see eye to eye, and that's a double entendre, unless you're in the same room. Eye to eye is you can't see the eye to eye with that kind of connection, and you can't see at the same level of thinking unless you're in the same room. Now, can technology still achieve this in ways that don't involve an in-person meeting? The answer is yes. But again, back to local, back to boutique, back to kind of the way that the mortgage coach LO uses the tool. This is the most profound way to do it. And what their research said, and again, we really have to balance out in the technology-rich world the humanity of business interaction. So these are the things that came out of this research. So the first reason you want in-person meetings is there's far less distraction. And there is a relationship between the level of distraction and conversion. And you need to write this down. Less distraction increases trust, which increases conversion. So whatever the distractions are, I mean, it can be a phone ringing, it can be a trash truck coming by, it can be internet, dropping off, it can be dogs barking in the background, it can be somebody from another room saying, honey, it can be all this kind of stuff, or somebody from your ops team saying, Joe, there's all kinds of distraction that we can get. And so if we have the in-person meeting, there is less of that. Secondly, without an in-person meeting, you can't use body language to your advantage. You can see a face, you can see a smile, you can see if I'm looking out the window, okay, but that's not positive body language. If I have an in-person meeting, I can use body language to my advantage. What are some of the body language signals? It can be energy, it can be passion, it can be feeling enthusiasm in the air, it can be confidence, it can be conviction, it can be all of these things. It can be leaning forward to pull people in, it can be pacing and leading, mirroring and matching, it can be all these things that aid in converting somebody to a loyalist that wants to use you forever. And as you do this, and they do, another loan with you and another loan with you and another loan with you, you don't have to keep doing that. You can do whatever you want. See, look, I just got a distraction. My phone is ringing in the background. Interesting. So communication becomes clearer when you have body language that's positive. And then when you start to marry number 3 with technology in the interaction and live, then that communication becomes clearer. And I think the biggest value that mortgage coach and a total cost analysis can bring to the dialogue is that the financing, the elements of financing, the cost of financing, all that goes along with that is much clearer because of the technology. But when you marry the body language and you marry lowering the distractions and you marry that up with effective intellectual technology and communication, then conversion goes up. A fourth reason is it's more relational. And I think everybody, in the mortgage coach tribe wants to have long-term relationships. I think everybody, that does loans for a living would like to build a tribe out of a very, very happy and positive user group. And so again, face to face, I want to make sure the first meeting, the first of even 15 years of doing loans for somebody, the first one has to be in person. All the rest can be supported with technology. All the rest can be done this way. They don't have to be done in person. There's nothing that says you can't. But the first time is the most important time because it's the relationship that's going to last throughout time. And if we don't do it really, really well, which Entrepreneur Magazine is saying it's got to be in person, we miss potentially the opportunity of growing that tribe. And then finally, it demonstrates a high degree of care for the client. And these are, you can go to Google and just type in this heading and read the article for yourself. But it's 3 pages of just really incredible validation of why in person. And I think it'd be interesting, Dave, to maybe do a poll and kind of see what the community says about this and kind of maybe think through, where are you guys in looking at in person as it relates to everything that's important?
So everybody, I have pushed a poll question. What percent of your borrower meetings are in person? I also pushed the same poll question in our mortgage coach productivity mastermind group. So far, it's pretty interesting how people are responding. So folks, only about 50% of you have voted so far. You know, you're going to get the most value from today's call if you participate. So let's get 70% of you voting. I'm going to give it one more second. Come on, let's get a push for the other 30% that haven't yet. And here we go. Todd, I'm going to push this live. So we've got less than 25%, or, you know, that's the biggest audience, 34%. Interesting, you know, 14% are meeting with over 75%. And then in the middle, you know, we've got the 20 to 50% and the 50 to 75%. So that is the community currently. Now, Todd, one thing I would love to do before I hand it back to you is I'm actually going to share my screen really quick.
Sure.
If you could just confirm that you can see it.
Got it.
And the point I want to make here is I want you guys to see what, you know, technology in an in-person meeting can look like. This is Jay Crowell out of Seattle. I remember Jay being on the stage of Sales Mastery at least one time. So definitely someone that is a student of yours, Todd. But the takeaway for everybody here should be that Jay is not only making the in-office experience a better communication experience, but he's also positioned that client so that when they leave the office, they've got his phone on their mobile device. Because remember, it's a story. You know, you're starting with the story. Sometimes, you know, they don't have a home in escrow, it's TBD, and you're providing purchase options. And then that story changes. And they're not coming back to the office every time the story changes. Sometimes they're at an open house. Sometimes they're in the realtor's office. The story changes. And by the way, there are decision makers that don't come into the house, that you want to be able to self-educate so that they have the luxury of the same content that was in the office. It's either the story is changing or there's other stakeholders. So, you know, I wanted to just show these visuals because they're great real-world examples of, by the way, mutual clients of ours. Todd, this is Denise Donahue meeting with a family in a coffee shop in Dallas, and she's, you know, educating a family. You know, this may not have been in her office, but this is where the modern mortgage professional lives and breathes, and it's not just over the phone and internet; it's in person. And this is a picture, again, another mutual client of ours, Todd, Scott Cummings in Albuquerque, New Mexico, where, you know, he's educating a realtor. He's explaining to the realtor that, hey, this is part of how I blend high trust in technology. This is how I create clarity for your clients. This is how I create urgency with your clients. And when they come into my office, they're going to get X experience. And for the families that don't come into my office, this is how I'm going to deliver this high trust, clarifying experience. So I just wanted to show a couple visuals. I don't know if you have any notes to add before I give you back the desktop, Todd, but I want people to realize that. Go ahead, Todd.
No, go ahead.
Well, I just want folks to realize that when they're in your office, this is the time that you need to make part of the experience. They download your apps. Mortgage Coach is an app that they should download. And then most top mortgage professionals now have a transaction app, a way that the family applies, a way that the family takes pictures and provides information, a way that they get transactional alerts throughout time. So make part of your in-office experience, hey, download the apps that will help you have a better experience with me. And now when they leave your office, you emotionally connected, all the things that Todd said, but now you're able to leverage technology to really make life better, simpler for that client. And by the way, if you think that combination of local loan officer that brings people into their office, connects with them in a modern way, do you think you're going to get beat by the machine that never meets them in person? No, that combination of tech, in-person experience, they're not even going to download their app because they're not there to connect. So I think this is super powerful. I think it's super important. I would like, and I don't think we're going to have time for it, but for all you mortgage coaches that are on this call, that you've got some great scripts in ways that you get people to come into your office, please, weigh in. I might even start a thread in our mastermind group saying, hey, what's your scripting to get someone to come to the office? Because I think that is going to come up. And by the way, maybe Todd, you and I, we do kind of a call after this and we drill down on that. So I don't know your thoughts. And by the way, folks, if you do have questions, we are not going to get to them in today's call because Todd still has 2 more big ideas for us. But if you post your questions, we'll try to do more calls for you. I'm going to give the screen back to you, Todd.
Cool. So the other thing that is super important to what Dave just brought up, and the reason why we want to push in this order, we want to push for at our office first. We want to default then to in-person second. And then the last option is, communicating via tech with them somewhere and me somewhere. And so I want you to be thinking that the ultimate goal is just to push up for the balance of this year, for the next 9 months, push up how you get people to see the value in the borrower consultation, the high trust consultation, inclusive of game-changing questions, inclusive of total cost analysis, inclusive of that whole thing. And how do you push that up? And here's the biggest reason besides conversion is if you can minimize by having enormous value the amount of time that you go back and forth. One of the things in the academy that is so rich and rewarding is when people start to realize they could actually ink out another face-to-face at their office in a day when they start to measure travel. We've got a guy in our elite group that one of the exercises I put him through was measuring how much time he was spending going to and coming back from closing. And the guy is north of 250 loans a year, and it was like 30 hours a month. And when you stop and think about, man, that would be 30 more consultations if I didn't have to go and have these in-person, uses of time. And so I want to, in my office first, in-person somewhere else neutral second, and then using just technology with them at their office and me at my office. Those should be the ordered approach you take. The next thing, and these 2 will be a little bit quicker, but one is they deepen the conversation and they connect emotionally. And so one of the things I would ask you to consider is what percentage of your interaction with a borrower has nothing to do with the mortgage, the financing, and the elements of what that produces in terms of payment and cash flow and those types of things. How good are you at asking the kind of questions that get you into a deeply connected emotional state of mind with a consumer? And when you miss connection, okay, you lower conversion. And so I would say that in addition to this idea of having a in-person at your office consultation with a borrower, that won't work as well as it would work if that consultation is very connected and that there's a series of 3 or 4 just emotional, I desire to know, deep thoughts about what's important to you. And when I can begin to answer questions around what's important to you, and I can begin to realize that people have a deeper desire behind buying a home than just buying a home. And they have a deeper fear behind getting a loan and that debt than just getting the loan and the debt. What we have to do is we have to govern our behavior in interaction with our consumers where we can feel this connection take place, when we can feel this kind of heartbeat begin to resonate. And I think that what I see happening often with technology, it becomes kind of the superficial enamel to a process. And I would just ask you to consider on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super deep, how good are you at really getting to the core issues that consumers have in buying and financing real estate? And if you can get to that level, then you're going to watch conversion go up. And if you're not at that level, you should spend think time journaling. What are the questions that you need to ask? We've got in the academy, we spend about 2 hours on just the borrower conversation and what does that actually look like and feel like. And there's really emotive questions that a skilled originator can begin to learn to ask that accelerate trust with that potential, client for life, obviously. And then the third one is, to Dave's point, that they deliver a world-class experience. And what I would say about this is that technology without an experience, if those two are not melded together as part and parcel of the total experience, then we're missing the opportunity at large. I mean, there's a real sense that if you utilize really great technology, but there isn't a really great behind it world-class experience, the technology doesn't make for client satisfaction. So the three things that I think, if I were an LO today and it's the 3rd of April, and I'm thinking about what am I going to do for the rest of the year to really hit the mark, I'm gonna make sure that I understand the power of trust first, supported by technology. And if I'm using technology to lead, it's got to have trust anchored to it, or it won't convert like it otherwise needs to convert. I would master, and Dave, I'll take you up on having a couple of those scripts that we can put out to the productivity group, the mastermind group, and really sell the idea without selling anything, why we need to meet at my office, and this is why we do it. This is what's in it for you. These are the outcomes you're going to experience. This is how much time it's going to save you throughout the transaction. All those types of things. Put that together. Then make sure that you are delivering that in a way that optimizes deep connection, which is that emotive relationship, and that you are absolutely, in our tech world today, mindfully and brutally clear on the idea that you are getting measured as an LO, not just once when the application is complete, not just once when the application is submitted, not just once. You're getting evaluated real time every day in ways that you can't even imagine. And if I were an LO, I would set a mark that, by the end of the year, I want to do everything within my power, within the financial ecosystem in which I work, to make doing business with me brilliant. That would be the word that I use, brilliant. And what ends up happening then is if you do that, you get this massive lift into your client's ecosystem. So let's go all the way back to the in-person meeting. Why do I want that? Because if I can connect with you then and we deliver a world-class experience, you will become the catalyst for me to provide the same kind of value into the ecosystem in which you are planted each and every day, whether it be your professional ecosystem, your personal ecosystem, or a combination of those things. So Dave, these three things LOs are really adopting as it relates to trust and technology. In my office, in person, connected, deep conversation, world-class experience.
So incredibly powerful. And by the way, I bet a lot of folks, this isn't the first time you've heard it. So the importance of experience, the importance of meeting in an office, but here's the deal. Are you executing? Take these three things and on a scale of 1 to 10 versus your personal standards, your goals, are you executing? And so, Todd, I'm looking forward to, recording a call where we give you the script. But here's the deal, guys. If you don't upgrade your skills, if you don't upgrade the requirements that you have for yourself, every family gets a total cost analysis. Every family gets my high trust questionnaire, and I'm present when I'm doing it. And I'm truly listening and caring about that client. And I'm actually, walk out, go, did I really connect with those people? Did I really like those people? Am I curious about them? So I do think if you want to be in the, referral-based local lender and loan officer business in 2020 and beyond, you need these skills. And by the way, if you want to crush it during spring home buying season right now, you need these skills. So I think I want to make sure folks know a little bit more about your High Trust Sales Academy, because again, Todd, I want you to describe it, but this is how I think of the High Trust Sales Academy. I think of it as a place for you to go in person, meet other like-minded people that are super serious about this. Let's face it, no one's going to spend this kind of money, go spend multiple days unless they are incredibly serious about high trust, upgrading their skills and their talents. And while Todd and I are going to make a video, we're going to give you some scripts. There's knowing and then there's doing. And one of the things where I'm a big fan of sales mastery myself and mortgage coach. I don't know that there would be a mortgage coach if there wasn't for sales mastery. So we are a product of that community. But I do think, Todd, when you do these, immersion programs where, it's multiple days, you're actually doing scripting and, it's teaching. It's not just learning and listening, it's learning, doing, and experiencing and upgrading yourself. So it is a large investment. We're talking about a lot of money. We're talking about a lot of time. But I do think, if when you start rating yourself, if you can do better, this High Trust Sales Academy is a great opportunity for you. So, Todd, if you wouldn't mind just giving people a little color around it, and I know there's some type of discount for Mortgage Coach members.
So can you see my screen, Dave?
I can.
You can?
Yes.
That's a positive. Good. Okay. So thanks for that tee up. I think that the Academy is the most important thing that I do. We do 2 of them a year. It's limited to 300 LOs. And, we spend 4 days just immersing ourselves into the pillars for success. We spend a day on life mastery. We spend a day on time mastery. We spend a day on relationship mastery, and we spend a day on client mastery. And what's going to make this May program even more unique is I'm bringing 3 of my top elite members in, and they're going to be sharing each day how they have actually implemented the truths and the strategies behind the Sales Academy. And those 3 individuals team up for about 1,000 funded units a year. So we're going to have Marty Preston, we're going to have Cody Hardridge, and we're going to have Ryan Grant hang with us during these 4 days. And each day they're going to take a role and show you how they've executed on these truths to be the top producer in their company and or in their market. And, here's the deal, Dave. At the end of our time together, I want everybody to know that you can actually, if you invest the time to implement the ideas, you can have an ROI that is equal to your investment every day. And my goal is to have people end up making an extra $2,000 or $3,000 a day by implementing the truths behind the Academy. And so that's my commitment. It's guaranteed. If you don't feel that it produces that kind of lift for you, you simply tell us. You don't have to pay. And Mortgage Coach users get $500 off the retail price, which is the best price we can take to the market because of our relationship. So the dates are the 8th through the 11th. We're going to be at the Newport Beach Marriott, and would love to have you guys down there.
All right. So a couple things. I put a link to this in the GoToWebinar control panel. So if you're on this call live, it's there. Todd, if you could put a link in our Mortgage Coach Mastermind group and just give us a little color on that. During this call, I put a quote that I love from Todd, where he said, when you miss connection, you miss conversion. I think that's so powerful. I also put a post up here is, what is your script to get clients to meet you in person? I would love to have a few members that have some great scripting share in comments. And when Todd and I do a video on this, we will let you know. That picture I showed earlier was Jay Crowell. And I actually interviewed Jay last year. So I'll put a link to this interview with Jay in our group. And then I also, while we push the poll around, what percentage of your client meeting in person, I also put this in our Facebook group, Mortgage Coach Productivity Mastermind. If you are a loan officer listening to the recording of this, you should absolutely be part of this Facebook private group mastermind. It's a great place to connect with like-minded loan officers. So, hey, Todd, you killed it. It was a fantastic call. Any last words of wisdom, pearls of wisdom that you want to leave the group with before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think, I'll wrap it up with what I said at the start. Trust is the most important thing to gain. It's the easiest to lose, and it's the one thing you got to hang on to. And if you wake up every day and you lead with trust, you're going to win. You're going to win. The clients are going to win. Everybody wins. So lead with trust. Thanks for letting me be on today, Dave. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And folks, if you would let us know, did we surpass your expectations with value and takeaways? If you are a guest on this call and you're not currently a Mortgage Coach member and you want a demo, click the last option. But let us know if we delivered for you today. looks like we did, Todd. All the reviews are coming in fantastic. So thank you, my brother. I love having you as a guest. I'm grateful. And let's get some 15, 20 minutes on the calendar and just do an interview around scripting to get folks to come in the office.
Would love to. Best. See ya.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.